It's the Friday Feels, and we're back with your first sip of the weekend. You're now tuned in to this week's episode of Your Happy Hour. I'm your host, Nicole Carmine, and it's amazing to have you here, joining me this week as we uncover the truths about being a human and a working professional. What are you up to this Friday? Well, whatever it is, this moment is just for you. And we're back with another episode of the Feels podcast, Your Happy Hour. We are now in the month of January. And last month we spoke about a topic called repurposing purpose. And I thought that was really a great way to end off 2025. And now we are entering a new month. We're talking about the theme relieving achieving this month, which is also a great way to start a new year, as we always ponder about what it is that we feel is our purpose. And we always want to achieve something in a new year, new goals, New Year's resolutions. It's always the New Year's start. But we kind of get told that it's not so much about the destination or the achievement, and it's really more about the journey to that and what drives us. And so I'm wondering what achieving and maybe relieving achieving means to everyone out there. What does it look like? What does it cost? And how does it feel for you in your body? So to start this theme for the month, we have a really amazing guest joining us today. A really big welcome to you, Desmond Denton, to the Feel Space and the Your Happy Hour podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's such a pleasure, and Happy New Year to you.
Yeah.
So because the Feels are all about our honest conversations and learning about your journey, I was curious if you can maybe just take us on a little bit of a journey of how you got to being where you are today. You are an award-winning director, a writer. Whenever I talk to you, you're on the road shooting something. So yeah, just give us a little bit of a lowdown on what the journey was for you.
There's always a few ways that you can share about the journey, kind of how you got there. You can go the academic route, what you've studied. But for me, it's always been a love for art that kind of started the whole journey, from going to theater with my parents and seeing well-known South African actors like Gavin van den Berg and something like Boeing 747 or Evita at the Baxter. So there's always been a love for seeing how a black space can transform, how you can go on a journey with a story. And I mean, growing up in South Africa, where I'm originally from, stories, I always say, is part of our blood. It's part of our DNA, whether it is looking at politics and laughing and telling stories about what's going on, or more serious things. Stories I really feel is such an integral part of who we are as Africans, as South Africans and people. So yeah, my journey has taken me through film school, studying film, directing. I've worked on film sets since I was 15. Started working as a runner, learning how to make good coffee so that I can stay on a film set. Just the absolute love for storying. And I must say that it's been an incredible journey from working with well-known filmmakers, learning from masters, as well as the current series where I'm filming the stories of master artists around the world. So it's been and I'm currently living in America. So that's kind of like a very short intro to kind of my story.
That's amazing. I love that you followed your heart and your passion, and you found your purpose, I guess, in some sense, and what you want to do in the world. And I'm very passionate about art too, and following your heart or art, if you want to compare those two, it's kind of the same. So what does this theme mean to you when we kind of picked this together? You said it resonated, but what does it bring up for you?
What I like about it is that in the world of art, and especially filmmaking, outcome, or let's call it achievement, is really at the top of the ranking order. So whether you go to a film festival, it's always like everyone shows their badges in a way. It's kind of like, and it's almost that your worth is validated by what is your last film? What is your latest achievement? And it's really interesting, especially living in America, where a lot of the world is based on this outcome based. Like, what are you doing? What are you doing? You need to do more. You need to achieve more. And what is interesting before we came to the US, knowing that is kind of the setting, we really thought hard. And we had a good process of 3 months just traveling through Asia, through Vietnam, through Thailand about what is our own story and kind of our idea of when we come to the US, what we want to do. Because you can very easily fall into that trap and be running someone else's story or just being busy with what you need to be or become that you don't even realize why. So for me, I think the topic is it's very personal. I always say there's a well-known verse that says, "What good is it for a man if he gains the world, yet he forfeits his soul?" And then I think we're not even trying to be spiritual about it. It really is like that. In my research that I'm doing with artists, when I went to Norway, I just discovered how incredible it is seeing these people who has accomplished a lot. How does their lives look like? How does their daily rhythms look like? What is the choices they make? And as you mentioned earlier, at what cost? So I think all the time when you're making goals, you kind of need to look at it and say to you, there's always two whys. The one is the project why. So whether it is an example, a film you're making, why might be, listen, I want to make a popcorn film. I want to make money. And we all need to make money as people, as artists. Or it is a deeper why. You say to yourself, well, this that I'm doing, there's something more to it. And the third why is definitely why. Like when I, as an investor, look at someone, I always ask them, why should you tell this story? Which is maybe a bit tricky for especially young artists because it puts you on the spot. Yeah, I think it's a difficult thing, and I think as you go through life, your answer will change. If you ask me now in early 2026, what is my why? It always starts with my personal belief, my inner core, my family. I definitely don't want to do anything that puts that at risk. And that's a great start because I feel like that is when we moved to the US, that's what came with me, was my beliefs and my family. Luckily, so I was able to bring my wife and at that stage 2 children with, and it was such a special place and a foundation to start from. So I think, yeah, that's definitely, if you ask about the topic, it's the concept of stop creating for validation only. So it's like you are the worth based on what other people are saying. So whether it is your video went viral and a few thousand people saw it, okay, but tomorrow, then what? When you start creating from a deeper sense, I really believe it changes what you create and how you create. So just to kind of put it in a short nutshell.
Yeah, no, I think that's really inspirational for me, especially listening to you, because also creating things, I think it's often like that for artists. I think a lot of people feel that in different ways in their life, but especially with art, because you put so much of yourself in there, and then it's really hard to detangle and detach from the worth and the value of that thing. So how have you found, like, you've been able to relieve the achieving? Like, what do you do to not do that?
I think it's really about how you spend your day. Like I really, and that's something I've seen with artists, and that's incredible. When I've went to Norway and I met some of the people who built the Viking ships for Northmen, and just seeing how do they live, like what does a day in a life of artists look like, which was the start of this journey with 24 master artists. Because I've looked at Einstein, I've looked at the well-knowns back in history, Mozart, and although some of them had incredible outcomes, a lot of them had pretty bad lives. If you look at what happened to their families, or the well-knowns like Van Gogh or Van Afrikaans Van Gogh, whoever these incredible artists are, and you look at their life and you're like, whoa, this is not so nice. So is there a way to balance those two? Like high level outcome, great. I'm obsessed with art. When I go to see beautiful churches in Ireland and I see how they did the carvings, or like how lighting falls through specific windows in a specific place that I travel to, I absolutely love art. And I think we shouldn't ever stop pushing our craft. That's one thing I want to say. But if you ask me, how do I relieve? It's a combination of things. It's firstly, what I've learned from artists is when I wake up now, and it's a small rhythm that I've started applying, is before I jump in, before I used to just jump in, start with what is most urgent, client needs, emails, taxes, whatever it is that is kind of like urging and pulling your attention. And I feel sometimes we get trapped there. So what I've started doing, I've learned from him. He's an illustrator in Norway. He would wake up in the morning, and for the first hour, he would just literally visualize the whole day. And I found that to be firstly very difficult and daunting, because I love being. I love doing things. I've always got too much happening. So just seeing how he would literally see and walk himself through the day. And then only when he finished that process, kind of envisioning the problems, envisioning the nice things, envisioning what the family needs, envisioning like all the different elements, then he would go and sit and have meditation prayer. And then he would write down, so what is the things he needs to do? And I felt that kind of when you start and maybe even end your day with a little bit of reflection, it really changes what you do. And it comes back to the why. You're kind of thinking about, and I would write down 2 or 3 things and say, okay, great, these are the things I have to do. These are the things I really want to do. And what is amazing is I ended up being able to do a lot more and a lot more focused. So just from the start of the day, and then at the stage where I'm at in my life is time zoning. I have very specific times that I create, whether it is writing or pitching, or it is like, this is my time that I spend on clients and work, or family. I wake up pretty early every day, between 4 and 5. I'm up every day. We're starting to work. So by the time kids come back from school, I've already done my full day of work. So we can go ski in the mountains. So I kind of feel like I have 2 or 3 different days. I have my work day, I have my family day, and then I am lucky enough to have like time with myself, my wife. We can just be creative and talk, dance if we want to dance, whatever it is. But I think that time zoning has been really good, because then like you've done your work for your day, and obviously you can't always. Sometimes there are things that goes beyond that time. If I have to be realistic, but it's great to work towards this balance or rhythm where you have specific times, specific outcomes, if I can call it that you're trying to achieve, and at the end of the day, you feel like, wow, I've actually done a lot.
That's really amazing advice. Thank you. I'm learning as you're talking, because a lot of
Yeah.
this stuff I feel like I need to apply in my life. I'm one of those who like makes my coffee and goes right into the laptop, and I'm also trying to sit back, just sit, look outside, like think about the day a little bit more. But it is hard. I mean, I think we kind of conditioned to want to do, like you say, and achieve. And maybe it is about routine. Like as a child, we also learn like there's a certain routine, and that we do a lot in that when I don't know, I did a lot at school, and I think back and I'm like, oh, I was so successful,
Yeah.
in inverted commas, because I did so much in a day, but there was routine and structure to it.
Yeah, definitely.
And I always, sometimes I think we rebel against structure, but there is quite a merit in creating that for yourself as a human.
Yeah.
So,
I think just to catch up on that, I look at my own kids and I'm like, wow, they do sport, they do school, they still have time for friends, and they've got time for book reading. I'm like, well, how do you guys get all this energy? Like, how do you do all this? And I think specifically as entrepreneurs, as people with our own businesses, often we lack that. And I have to agree with you. And that's a big part of our fall is when you work for a boss, when you go to school, there's these things that demands and puts you in, let's call it time zones, in structures. When you work for yourself, you have to create that, because otherwise life will carry you away into boxes of what is supposedly urgent or not even. You could find yourself scrolling away on your phone or emails and just going through. And at the end of the day, you ask yourself, what did I do? I think it's even more important for artists and for business people, for entrepreneurs, to create that structure so that you can have a balanced life.
yeah, I agree completely. And I often talk about this concept of being an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Because, I think it's just people forget that you have to, as an artist, you do everything yourself anyway.
Yeah.
You also have to do the taxes and whatever else. So I'm curious. I mean, your love started for film and everything quite young, but did you see yourself where you are now 10 years ago?
I think there's a film I love, Mr. Nobody. One of my favorite, I'm a very big fan of 30 Seconds to Mars, Jared Leto. I'm a musician myself. So I always look at it in a way of different things. My father always said, he's a well-known professor in psychology. And he always said that there's 3 M's. There's the most important decisions in your life: your master, your mate, so basically who you marry, who's with you, and your mission. And what's interesting with Mr. Nobody, it kind of shows those different things, like his life going in very different directions with any of the different choices. So in his case, obviously, a different person who's involved in his life completely changed the road. And I must say, if you ask me 10 years ago, would I imagine myself being here? I would be pleasantly surprised by saying no. And I say that on purpose because, firstly, I'm Afrikaans. I worked with Kijknet, Mnet, and those were my people, my culture, my language, my story. So 10 years ago, I would have never imagined I would find myself firstly in America, in this space, doing stories as I'm doing now. And it's not that I wasn't thinking or dreaming for the sky. It's more of, I think if you follow the road, your, let's call it your why, when you're so busy, almost obsessed about what you need to do and doing it as good as you can, like you actually don't honestly know too far ahead. You always look ahead. You always make plans. I've got films, big films, things that I'm like, oh, great, this will be so amazing to do. But when you're just pursuing what you need to do, it really opens the next door, which opens the next door. So if you asked me 10 years ago, would have I imagined being here? No, but I can definitely say the things that I imagined and wished for and even prayed for. Like, I'm so blessed to say that those things are like having 3 kids. That is such a special part of my life, my adventure when we travel, even seeing them now getting involved in musical theater. And then obviously with work, you look back at your work, at the awards, at the stories you do, and you're like, wow, this is kind of cool. This is exciting to be here. And then you look ahead and you're like, wow. And it's that thing of not getting obsessed only about like the outcomes. Like now where I'm at, it doesn't mean as much to me as when I was 18 years old. And that's an exciting space when it's really not just about that trophy on the wall, but more about the work you do. So yeah, I think it's always a work in progress. There's more I can learn, more I can do. So, but I definitely wouldn't have imagined I would be sitting here in America right now in the setting, busy creating the stories I'm creating.
Oh, that's amazing. I love when the things that you imagine kind of, when you look back and you're like, well, these things happened in my life, but probably in the way that I least expected it, in
Yeah.
the best way possible. Like the universe always knows what's best for you. But I'm curious, I have to ask this question. So you came from South Africa, you're in the US now. The sense of achievement, I know, is quite a big thing in South Africa as a culture. And I think in America too. But do you see differences between the two?
To South Africa and America, I think I'm still a judge on various things. So I'll put it in this way. I've this year been involved with last year actually been involved with the SAFTAs. I've been involved in Oscar judging. So when you look at people who are like their work are rated as some of the best in the world in the film industry, it's amazing to kind of look. And I'll start from that perspective because that's obviously the field I work in. I must honestly say I'm so proud to see the level of South African stories coming out. When I look what's coming out on Netflix and I look at the international stories being told, it's really incredible to see how the craft that people has been doing, facilitating international films, working on black sales, and all of us has been there. A lot of South African filmmakers has been working blood, sweat, and tears on commercials, on films, and just getting our craft. But it is so amazing to see South African stories as South African stories starting to hold their ground. So looking in America and seeing on Netflix, here's a South African story, and it is not just good, it's oftentimes better because we had to learn how to tell stories really well with very small budgets when we were not facilitating the internationals. And I think people has been able to stretch their dollars or their rands very far. And it's really amazing to see that. So if you ask regarding accomplishment, how different it is in South Africa and America, I think it's the same sense. I think it is just a very different world. Like I must say, South Africa has its few little niches, its few little circles of in TV, whether it is your commercial filmmaker, you work in doing adverts for TV, or it is you're doing TV productions with Mnet. That's a little circle. America has, you really can get lost. You can go and say, well, I want to go completely into, not just, for example, faith. I want to go into Christmas movies for Hallmark. And that's you. So you have to really cleverly think, like, what is it you want to do and kind of follow that path. And in each group, you could be, for example, in the US, a really big sci-fi filmmaker. And then in another group, people don't even know about you. So I think, and there's amazing filmmakers like Anel Alexander, who I've worked with on films like Moirafir, who came over to the US. They had a great journey, amazing story, and eventually went back to South Africa. And just felt that's her community. That's a sense of where she accomplished. And she has a really incredible story about her and her late husband, and I'm always inspired seeing, like, understanding her, what she's doing in art. So I think it's the same, but just very, very, very different circles. And when you reroute, when you move over, you find yourself at a loss of community, definitely.
Yeah.
Like it's a completely different world. It's not your friends that you've done 20 years of work with. You're remaking friends and connections. So I think you have to redefine what is accomplishment and even why you are there.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think it's really. I mean, it's not easy when you travel from one space and familiarity to another, which is unknown, uncertainty, but then gives you the space to grow as a person that you didn't expect to be,
No.
and which is beautiful. So, and talking about stories, I know you also have some amazing stories that are showing in
Yeah.
South Africa, and some that are on the way. There's Spelonk, but which is
Yeah.
also wait, it's translated in different way. Remind me again.
Spelunk is good. It's the right word in a lot of different languages. It's kind of like when you go inner cave diving. I don't know if that's the right term, but I came up this. I really love the feeling of Afrikaans and also how little Americans can pronounce it. So originally, when I spoke to my sales agent here in the US, they had the concept of like day zero, and it had a very Mad Max feel because it is a post-apocalyptic crazy story, and it just felt like it's so unique. Like when we started this whole story, the journey of it, and eventually we stuck to it. And it's amazing to see it kind of going to the Comic Cons, to the different festivals, to the different TV stations as a small South African indie film. So that's one of the projects that we finished. It was really a work of, I don't want to say passion, but it's while I was facilitating, while I was working with the guys who do movies like Sharknado, facilitating some crazy sci-fi stories, we decided to do something that we felt is our own. And yes, we started making Spelonk, and it went from a short film concept script at the Silver Scatum Festival to something that we decided to make into a fully fledged film and eventually a book.
That's amazing. I love that. I mean, as a South African and Afrikaans person, it like makes my heart really happy to hear that these things are being born into the world, and sometimes it's the side projects, I think. You know, the
Yeah.
moments that you just follow your joy in that sense. And
It, what's funny about that, just you mentioned with language, is we shot it in two different languages. So I wanted to experiment. So we shot it in complete English. So the actors had to be duolingual, and obviously in South Africa, Afrikaans. And then what we did, we took a American-based post-production team. They edited the Afrikaans one, just so it doesn't feel like a South African typical film. And then I took one of the best South African editors, and I had him edit so vice versa. So the English one was done by Afrikaans team. The Afrikaans one was done by an American team. So it was really, and so we have two completely separate films. It's edited different, soundtrack is different. So it was kind of interesting to see, and even working with actors to kind of see how different are your personality when you express in Afrikaans versus English, which I was really fascinated by how different it is.
That's so true. That's so true. I mean, I even just think of when I speak Afrikaans, where my tone is at, and when I speak English and when I speak French, and just the difference in language and how you pronounce it and how you are. I mean, that's fascinating. Yeah.
And rhythms. It's like exactly like you said. If I switch over, for example, to Russian and I speak to you and I say, "Здравствуйте, меня зовут Desmond, как вас зовут?" Your personality change, of je praat bietjie Afrikaans, and daar's net these little nuances, little ways of how you speak. And obviously in films they exploit it and make it like very stereotypical with their bad accents and showing, but there is really like a rhythm to language that is very beautiful.
Yeah, I love that too. I mean, I'm such a fan of, first of all, poetry and that language, and how that translates into other art as well. So I love that you did that, and really excited to see where that goes.
Yeah.
And on that, I just want to take a quick moment to also say thank you to platforms that give us the voice to speak the languages we're doing now and the stories. And just a very quick partner spotlight on rss.com, who are our distribution platform. Thank you for making this possible, for giving us free reins and distributing all the podcasts we want to. And if you are interested, they've given our audience a discount. So thank you so much. And feel free to DM us on the socials if you want to know more about that. And also to bomb companies. So Blender Bombs is a very nutritious snack that is mostly in the US, but you can find it elsewhere too. And it's something I discovered on my travels, and they've given our audience a generous 20% discount when you order with the code The Feels. But you can also ask us a little bit more about that on the socials. And then I just wanted to do a really quick little shout out to people, places, and spaces. It's a person or a place that we found that we feel have the feels. And this week's shout out goes to a company, or rather let's call it a connection space, called Time Left. It's something that I know started here in France, and they're just growing significantly. And it's about having dinner with strangers. So you sign up and you meet different people for dinner in a really cool restaurant in Paris, for example. And yeah, they've just, I think the need for experiences is so huge and connection. And so really, really cool what you guys are doing, building authentic connection between people. So a big shout out to them. Our gems of the week. So this is something that's happened in your week, Desmond, that you feel has given you feels, whether that's like sad or happy or something you've learned. So I'll start, and mine were really that on the topic of achieving, I think I really needed to kind of change perspective on seeing things from an efficiency-based motivation to being more in my flow. And just having fun. You know, sometimes you're so busy with things that we really forget that what we're supposed to be doing is fun. So it was a good one to start the year off with, and something I really needed to look at as I set goals for 2026. So yeah, what was yours?
I think surprising my daughter for her 12th birthday by she was going to say goodbye to my wife. I was already filming in Ireland, so we kept it completely a secret. She came to the airport, she got a little gift bag because she was turning 12 that week, and then she opens the bag, and inside there's a ticket that says she's going to Ireland. So, and just seeing her face, like as we took her to this incredible spaces and going to the place where they did Book of Kells, walking around the monastery. It's one thing for me when I travel and I film to see these stories myself, but it's so incredible when you share it. So having my wife, having my daughter Caitlin, who loves art and theater, and showing her this world, this history, like that was incredible. I can just say, like walking around the mysterious and literally mystical, as you see the mist driving over the monasteries, sleeping in a castle. So we stayed over at one of like a well-known castle in Ireland, and just it is incredible sharing it. So as you mentioned, this concept of community, it just resonated with me. This interaction between people being so important.
Yeah, I love that. Oh, she must have been so excited. I love surprises, and I think as a child, I mean, we're always children forever and ever, but especially then when you're younger, that sense of wonder is even more there. So that's really great. I did have one more question for you, and that is, what is in your stack? So that's our reading list. And we have people come on as guests and recommend books to the audience. Maybe it's something you want to read or you have read and you would like to talk about. But I also want you to talk about your book that's
Yeah.
coming up. So.
Yeah, I think there's like I always say in Afrikaans, there's een in die pan, een in die kan. So you have like one in the making and one that's kind of like done. So it's with us, it's always exciting because it's with whether it's film projects. I'm currently busy with a series called 24, or Vera's busy working on an incredible sci-fi story that she's writing that I'm involved with. We have a few books it's out. The one is the William Austen. It's a crime novel about a real life story, which was a really fascinating just story to get into, almost like a Bonnie and Clyde set in a South African. An incredible story of a person's real life. We have a new one that's coming out called End of a Rainbow, also a crime novel. I kind of enjoy that. A road movie that takes people on a really, really interesting, without giving anything away about it, because it'll be out early 2026. So yeah, there's a few stories in the works. Regarding what I'm reading myself, I've moved away from reading too much life principle things, because this, I feel, is an overload of information. Like there's so much things about how to do the principles, the this, the that. And as much as I love knowledge, I've tried to break it down. So I've started reading stories again. So whether I'm reading with my kids Lord of the Rings or The Horse and His Boy, I'm reading a lot of the classicals because I feel a lot of these stories are incredible. Right now, I'm reading a very good book. It was one of the most banned stories back in the day in the old Soviet Union, called Master and Margarita. So for anyone who wants to read a story that, if you've not read it, like honestly want to say to you, get your hands on this book. There's a new film out about it, but it's just a story that's so intriguing and masterfully told. So yeah, that's something I've just started jumping back into stories, because I feel before I go to rest or wherever I travel, it takes me out of wherever I am. If I'm sitting in line waiting for my plane, I can go there and I'm completely in a different space. So Master and Margarita, an incredible story.
I love that. We're going to be adding that to the stack, and I can't wait to read it. I'm with you on that one. I feel when I'm on the metro here in Paris, like I'm so much into books of just taking me out of my world for a moment, out of my inner reality. So It's great when you can have a good laugh or think deeply into somebody else's story. So we'll be definitely adding that. And I wonder for everyone else who's listening, what are you feeling about this topic? What are you thinking about? How are you going about your day and how you structure things? And what does 2026 hold for everybody? I hope it's an amazing year. I know it is going to be. And saying thank you so much to you for coming on and being our first guest of this new year, and for sharing so openly and honestly about your journey.
Thank you so much for having me.
If you haven't just yet, follow Friday Feels on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and LinkedIn. You can share with us all your feels this week by tagging us at fridayfeels.co. And you can also find the website at that handle. And now, as you ease into this weekend, take a moment. Celebrate who you've become, what you've overcome, and what is yet to come as you do the crazy and cool things that you do as the authentic you. You know, the truth about life and work is that it's hard, but the beauty is this global working experience that you're in, well, we earn it together. So keep connecting, empowering, and inspiring this week. And of course, keep it raw and real. Until next time.